Okay. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Of course, I'm not ready. Okay. So we're doing a national anthem, right?
Yeah, they're gonna say.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Great job. Thank you.
Wonderful job.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is student recognition. So I'll hand that over to you.
So I want to introduce our Assistant Superintendent for PPS, who's going to kind of coordinate the awards and recognitions for tonight.
Okay, first we'd like to invite up Mr. Armano from Lincoln Avenue. Okay. Oh. Okay, so all three principals will be presenting as a united force. So we have Mr. Armano from Lincoln Avenue, Dr. Foy from Sunrise Drive, and Dr. Ein from Cherry Avenue.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Foy, Mr. Armano, and I are thrilled and really proud to be here tonight recognizing our finest in the room. We're going to start with music. SCMEA stands for Suffolk County Music Educators Association. Every year, music teachers across the county nominate a few students from each school to participate in this advanced band, orchestra, and chorus. These fine musicians learn challenging music on their own time. And on March 10th, they came together after only 3 rehearsals and put on a fantastic performance. I'd also like to point out that we have our music teachers in the room. And I think when we're applauding for the kids, we also want to give them a big round of applause as well. So we're going to recognize all 3 schools together. I'll start with Cherry Avenue. I'm pleased to recognize Kate Herman and Emily Miller, who sang in the chorus. Please come up. From Lincoln Avenue, I'm proud to introduce Olivia Donnells and Avery Gilbert, who sing in chorus. And from Sunrise Drive, we have SCMEA students are Michael Dragata, who played cello with orchestra, Paul Mainborg, and Lila Moje, who sang in the chorus. Great job, everyone. Yes.
Want to get over there or no? Guys, let's go to the picture over here. Okay, Olivia.
He's not here.
Okay, I'll take it.
Paul.
I'll write the list now. We'll take it later. Thank you so much.
Morning, guys. Come over here. Yep.
So we have for Kate and Emily. Do you have Kate and Emily? Kate and Emily? Do you have Kate and Emily?
Save the best for last. That's what they're doing right now. You can see it.
While we're still continuing with music, LISFA stands for Long Island String Festival Association. The festival is comprised of the most advanced orchestra students across the island. It is my pleasure to recognize Harrison Bentley Garfinkel from Cherry and Michael Dragata from Sunrise for their outstanding cello talent and representing Sayville in the festival this year. And if we could just have our talented music teachers wave hello so we can give them a thank you.
Scouts. We do all the scouts now. Good evening, everyone. I like talking in front of big crowds. This is awesome. All right, so we have some wonderful scouts here tonight. These fine gentlemen, they have earned something that very few scouts earn across their career. It is called the Arrow of Light. The Arrow of Light is both a rank and an award. It's the highest achievement in Cub Scouting, and it's the only Cub Scout award that can still be worn on a Boy Scout uniform. The award design is a yellow arrow with a rising sun. There are 7 rays in the sun that represent wisdom, courage, self-control, justice, faith, hope, and love. Very often, a Weeblos earns the award at the end of their time in the pack, so the awarding of the Arrow of Light coincides with the crossover to a Boy Scout troop. The symbolism of the award peaks to the heart of scouting. Like an arrow, scouts travel a straight path. Achieving the award is not an end, but like a new day, it is just a new beginning. So congratulations, young men. From Cherry Avenue, Matthew Anderson, Harrison Bentley Garfinkel, Hunter Dalia, Henry Eckstein,
Thank you.
Lucas Foster, Kai Lee, Caleb Martin. From Lincoln Avenue, Matthew Albano, Anthony Amato, Charles Lodlin, Cormac Shea, Jack Whitehouse. And from Sunrise Drive, James Costello.
You're right. Yes, I can see everyone's faces. Everyone hold them up. Yay. Okay, great. I see everyone's faces. One, two, three.
Congratulations, guys. All right, for those students who have to get home and do some homework, we encourage you to go do so or enjoy the rest of your evening. That's right, it's a break. For those of you that are staying, please, we have some extra seats that have opened up, so please, find a seat. And we'll give those of you some time to exit effectively. Purposely. Well, is that working? I'm just going to do it from my seat then. I'm just going to present from my seat.
Okay. Yeah, it might be
The
better.
camera will catch
Yeah, because it's catching your profile.
So you're good,
that
pro?
camera, bro. Water damage. Water damage.
Okay.
Okay, we do have some seats now, so if you're in the back and you want to get a seat, there's a whole row in the front, and there's some areas in the middle. Please
Take a seat.
get yourself comfortable. If anyone's in the hall, there's a whole row in the front. No one likes to sit in the front? There's still a couple seats, folks.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So I'll do it after I talk about the Wizards game, then I'll just let you comment on that. Okay. I have like a bunch of activities throughout the district, and then I'll just get started.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening again, everybody. We'll move on to reports. The first topic I have is correspondence. We had a couple emails, one from a parent regarding class size and possible cuts in the 24-25 budget. And there was another one regarding Parent Square, and a third email from a community member regarding substitute teaching. The next thing will be for the superintendent of schools to give his report.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. We have just two parts to this report. One is just a quick around the district, and then we're going to do our district budget presentation. So just real quick, most importantly, Sayville School District earned an A+ in a new report by Niche, outlining that we were one of 16 schools in Nassau County that got A+ because of the high quality of our staff. So I just want to take a moment to celebrate our staff, to thank them for their great work. More evidence that our Sayville teachers are second to none in the county, and I think the state probably and in the world. But we appreciate the work you do, and it clearly showed in this report. Want to congratulate our students who performed in Mamma Mia. It was a dazzling performance. The songs were just, I found myself tapping my feet the entire time. It was just a great performance. Congratulations to the amazing cast and crew. The musical featuring music by Swedish pop super group ABBA ran at the high school from Thursday through Saturday, and I just want to congratulate those students and all staff members who were involved. I especially just want to applaud the pit band. Is that what you call it? A pit band? It was like listening to live professional performance, and it was all kids. And so the singing, dancing on the stage, and the pit, awesome. So congratulations. Sayville High School Library recently welcomed author Paul Volpani for 3 reader workshops and a double period of creative writing. Students shared some of their work with the author ahead of time, so he was able to improve their skills and vision. Again, teachers going above and beyond to create really authentic and professional experiences for our kids to experience at the high school. I want to congratulate our middle school students. The members of the Sayville Middle School Coding Club participated in the annual Code Conquest Hackathon held by Kidoyo in Hauppauge. The team placed 3rd overall and won 1st place for Best Capital Defense Project. Congratulations to our middle school coding teacher and students. On Tuesday, March 5th, members of the high school string ensemble visited all 3 elementary schools for their annual children's concert series. The concert is an opportunity for elementary students to see a string ensemble up close and to learn what the various instruments sound like by themselves and together. I got to see some of that at one of the schools, and I just thought it was awesome. The high school kids, Ari, you did a wonderful job just sharing with kids what the instruments are and got them really excited about playing them. So it was just really cool. Also, our research natural disaster was studied at Lincoln Avenue. The students in Ms. Order's 4th grade class recently completed their nonfiction reading unit on natural disasters. Students were required to work in groups to research, take notes, create presentations, and teach their classmates about natural disasters. So this is just one of many, many different activities that go on in our schools at the high school, middle school, and elementary level. And again, I want to congratulate not just these teachers, but the teachers who earned the prestigious award because they deserve it and they do great things for our kids. So thank you to everyone in that area. Also want to thank our athletic department for running workshops with our spring athletic teams. Dr. Nancy Kaplan and Lamar Lee came to talk about sports culture, and the feedback from the coaches and the players was very positive. It was a good experience setting up the stage for the spring season. I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent for PPS, Ms. Macris, to talk about some of the exciting things going on in the PPS department.
We recently celebrated on March 19th, Here Comes the Sunday. It was an initiative that was inspired by one of our very own middle school teachers, Mrs. Batterberry. So Mrs. Batterberry is here. So, and an infusion of some positivity, as you see by the bright colors, but most importantly, throughout the month of March, that was a tongue twister, we've been collecting donations for the neighborhood house, which collects donations for grieving families to help them cope with different losses. So that's really was the main message here. So we're doing that through the end of March, and we're very excited to be able to give those donations to the neighborhood house at the end. Next, today at the middle school, we had a speaker, Stephen Hill, and his mission is to help young people lead healthy, substance-free lives. He actually addressed the entire middle school student body, grades 6 through 8. We did have administrators there from neighboring school districts, and when they left, they did comment on how respectful and engaged our students were. So we had really good feedback, and he actually spent the entire day in the middle school post that assembly. He met with every 8th grade student in smaller breakout sessions to have a more intimate discussion with them, and the kids were able to have a dialogue and ask questions. In a smaller setting. So that was a huge success. Thank you to the middle school administration for supporting that and for the teachers as well. We think we're excited to have Stephen back in the future. Just some pictures. And then we just want to notify the community and the staff about an upcoming parent workshop on Tuesday, April 19th. We will be joined by Dr. Jacobs, who is an adolescent medicine physician at Stony Brook University, and he is going to be speaking on eating disorder awareness and prevention. That will be done via Zoom. So again, all staff and community members are welcome to attend that via Zoom.
Mr. Yomo is going to just give us an update on the solar eclipse that's coming on April 7th. 8th, sorry. I ignored the slide. It's 8th. We had some questions. Are we canceling school that day? No, we're not canceling school, but we are having some plans put in place to make sure everyone's safe, but also a learning experience.
Yes, April 8th is going to be, it is a total solar eclipse, but in our area, it is near total solar eclipse. And it's nearly a once in a lifetime educational event for all of us, children and adults alike. So while it's very educational, it's also something we need to consider from a health and safety standpoint, since looking directly at an eclipse can be dangerous, is dangerous. So we are planning to address this by providing all our students with eclipse glasses that have been vetted. There's a NICER provides a list, and thank you to Ms. Meserole for forwarding that list to us so that we could be aware of all the options that are vetted and safe. So we're using a vetted vendor, a vetted brand, to ensure that our students walk away with a safe opportunity to view something that's very exciting. And thanks to our K-5 STEAM teachers for putting together some really nice instructional materials for students to learn about eclipses, viewing safety, and to our astronomy club, who's hosting an event at the middle school for all secondary students. So it promises to be something very exciting and memorable.
Also, just want to thank the middle school, high school PTA for organizing the Harlem Wizards game. It was just yesterday, I guess. It was a great game. There were over 30 teachers participated. The entire auditorium was packed with mostly elementary students cheering and jumping up and down. It became more of a dance party than a basketball game. We had delusions of grandeur that we could actually play with them, but they were much better than us. But I also just want to, we decided to make some playing cards of some of the all-stars. So here we have Jim Above the Rim Foy from Sunrise Drive. He's averaging about 20 points a game. Great job. We have Downtown Brian Decker at the middle school, who is very good defensively. We have Scott Triple-Double Bullis at Lincoln Avenue. We had Dominic the Clutch Armano, and we also had Jonathan Redemption Hart, who was the leading scorer and got this year's Most Valuable Player. So congratulations to our admin team. We will be selling trading cards after the meeting, and if you want to get in on the flipping, all for it. I didn't, because I was taking pictures of everyone else. I didn't have a picture of myself. Okay, and then Maureen Dolan actually had an experience over at one of the third grade classes that she wants to talk about. So.
I have done this previously. First of all, I want to give kudos to the parents and to the teachers. I went into a Mrs. Falco's third grade class for reading, except I usually ask questions and speak about other things, trips and whatever. But this year was a little different than other years. I've done it previously. This year, I did ask the kids what they like best about school and what they don't like that much about school. So what surprised me this year was usually when you ask them what they like best, it's art, music, gym. This year, of course, they always like recess number 1. Number 2 and 3, though, were art and science. That was a surprise. And kudos to the teachers out there. What they really don't like about school, this is unanimous, homework. Just to let you know, homework is there. They don't want it. So I figured I'd bring back the information. But thank you very much. Thank you to the teachers. Ms. Falco, your class is incredible. The parents, your students are not afraid to ask questions. They speak up, and these are young children. So I expect them to do a lot in the future. Thank you.
Okay, and it's now time to transition to the part of the meeting that I think most of the people in the room are here for, and I appreciate the fact that there's so many people. I'm sorry we don't have enough seating, and that's this year's school budget. This is not a budget that I would want to present. It feels more like a budget that we're kind of forced into presenting, and since January 16th, I've lost sleep over it pretty much every night because I really love Sayville. I love this community. I love the teachers here. I think you guys are amazing. I love the staff and the community. And I'm a builder. And this team of administrators, Peter, Rhonda, Jillian, Amy, we're creators. We like to architecturally create great things for children with you. And so our plans always were to build. and to expand on the programs. And so when the governor announced that she was cutting $3.4 million from our funding, it was a punch to the gut. And I know that everybody here is probably, here because they feel that same way. So this budget is really an amazing amount of work and effort to do everything possible to keep intact the programs for children and also then therefore for staff. It was not easy, and I want to kind of tell the story. So I'm going to start by just telling the story and the pathway we followed so everyone has every detail. And then Rhonda is going to go over the numbers and really present the actual budget. But my part is more just telling the story of where we were and kind of how we got to where we are. If I can make the clicker work. Okay. So in December, we had met with departments and principals, and we were really designing a budget, dreaming big for our students. We were using the 100-day study to kind of think about what we wanted for our kids. We had a plan last year where we added staffing to support reading at the elementary schools, math AIS at the elementary schools, STEAM programs, elementary world language, and we had planned to continue to build on that program, and as well as electives at the high school and opportunities for teaming and block scheduling at the middle school. We met with departments and buildings, we designed our plans, and we aligned those plans with board goals and values based on the surveys from parents, students, and teachers. And we started to think about, are we going to be able to do this? There were some aspects we thought we might not be able to, but we wanted to dream big and then pull back as we needed to. Come January, we received some really hard news. And we already know January 16th, Governor Hochul cut $3.4 million from our budget. But there were other factors, almost like a perfect storm, that affected our budget as well. Employment contracts, which we count on, pension increases, health insurance costs, Medicare costs that were up, a 17% increase in living costs on Long Island, affect not only individual homeowners, but also school districts. And that led to a shortfall between what our budget was and what our revenue was of $5.8 million. And that's a big number. I think it's a number we could have overcome if we didn't have the $3.4 million hit at the same time. Because every year we get a natural progression of retirements, and every year we use that revenue to kind of offset our inability to make the cap. And the reason that every year we really don't have an ability to make the cap is because the cost of goods and living is higher than 2%. But it's because of the natural progression of retirements that we're always usually able to get under that cap. This year, that was not going to be the case with this current situation. So in February, March, and April, we began really planning and trying to do everything possible, both from an advocacy point of view with the governor. And I really want to commend the teachers, the STA, the SASA unit, the aides, the modelers, everyone who participated in the letter writing campaign. I think it made a difference. The thing that makes this process so frustrating is that was in late February, and we're still here heading into April, and we get news that the governor and the legislature are going to negotiate, but Easter came, they didn't realize it, and so they're going to miss the April 1st deadline for presenting their new budget. I'm very hopeful that we get some sense of restoration. Clearly, the legislature on both sides of the House, both parties and independents, are all in favor of restoration. They've asked for full restoration plus 3%, which would be a huge difference. And if that's the case, we are going to adjust our budget accordingly. We are holding off until the very latest date, which is April 16th, to adopt the budget. So if there's any change between now and then, we will hold a special meeting of the Board of Education, and we will present a new budget with those factors in place. Some people are asking, well, why aren't you presenting two budgets tonight? We can't possibly present two budgets tonight because there's so many variables of what could come back. We could get 3.4 million restored. We could get 1 million restored. We could get 800,000 restored. We can't plan that way. So this budget is planning with what we're told we're given. And then if we're given a new number, we will have a special meeting, invite everybody back, and we'll do it again with the new number. But then, in addition to the advocacy, we reviewed all of the departments, all of the buildings, all of the codes, and tried to reduce all of the stuff that aren't people, because we know that the people are what make the programs for kids. And I'll go over what we did there and how much we cut in supplies, in equipment, in projects, and other things like that. Then we reviewed the district reserves, and I'll tell the story of how we took money from reserves and also offered a retirement incentive to the teachers because we knew that if we didn't do something like that, we would be talking about 20 to 25 layoffs in our teaching staff. And then we got creative with scheduling to try to save as many jobs as possible. And so as much as this is a painful budget, what I can say that I am very happy about, and I don't think happy is the right word because none of this is happy. I feel angry because I feel like somebody did this to us. But there are no programs cut for kids in this budget. So we are maintaining every program that exists in Sayville will continue to exist. I will explain how some staffing cuts does impact us, because it does, but in terms of programs in the arts, in music, in sports, in the core academic subject areas and elective offerings, everywhere where there were students who wanted to take courses where enrollment was reasonable, we're running those courses. And I think that's important that we're able to get to that point. I just want to talk about what the original plan was. This is not the plan that's going to happen, but I think it's important to note that this is where we started. And again, last year we added, last year we added a reading teacher at Cherry Avenue to enhance our RTI programming because we were committed to making sure that kids left elementary school ready for middle school and on grade level. And we redesigned and experimented at Cherry Avenue with a new reading teacher and a new system of support with a push-in model. Our plan this year was to add 2 reading teachers at Sunrise Drive and Lincoln Avenue. We added 2 math AS teachers this year, one at Sunrise and Lincoln, and they created a new system for supporting students at those schools. And the plan was to add that math teacher at Cherry Avenue in this upcoming year. We added 2 STEAM teachers at Sunrise Drive and Cherry Avenue, creating a STEAM program for our elementary students. It was going to be a pilot in one school. We found the ability to do it at 2, with the plan to add the 3rd at Lincoln Avenue. I put that in green because we were able to maintain a STEAM program at Lincoln next year, but without the additional teacher by utilizing our staff differently. So even though we're not adding the STEAM teacher at Lincoln for next year's budget, we are going to offer STEAM at the Lincoln Elementary School so that it'll be equitable in all 3 buildings. Last year, we added full-day co-teaching in all the elementary schools, and it was our plan to add 1 CSE chairperson to improve the ability of the district to kind of take on new referrals, set dates, and meet obligations. Last year, we added 4th grade band in addition to orchestra, and we were looking into the possibility of expanding band and orchestra to 3rd grade as a program. We added teaming and block scheduling grades 6 and 7, and our plan was and still is to add teaming into 8th grade if it works for the schedule, but that's not a cost, so we are hoping to still be able to do that. That's why that's also in green. In elementary world language in kindergarten, we added last year, and we were hoping to expand that elementary world language to grade 1 because it doesn't cost any additional staffing because our enrollment is down at the secondary level. We're able to still do that within this budget. As I said, we're not cutting any programs that were in that regard. We had 1 elementary administrator that was grant funded, and it was our plan to transition that elementary administrator into the general fund, and that cannot happen in this budget. So one of the cuts is going to be the elementary administrator. And again, our original plan was to use retirement reductions as they naturally happened at the secondary level as enrollment dropped to enhance areas that we had needs for. Because we believe that there were areas of the elementary school based on survey work from teachers and staff and principals and parents that needed to be addressed at the younger levels. So at this point, though, this pretty much plan is off the table. We can revisit it if there's full restoration, parts of it, but we also have to be careful with restoration because if the message is restoration and hold harmless holds for here on after, then we can be safe. If they say we're restoring something, but you're going to have to pay up over 5 years, a certain number of dollars, then we have to plan differently. So our dreams were kind of deferred, and state aid cut and other costs have affected us. So in addition to the $3.4 million cut in foundation aid, as I said, there was cost of living increases. So our electric bills, our heating bills up significantly in this last year. Our contracts, although we know to plan for them, they have costs that raise that create a gap in our expenditures and our expenses. Our health and pension costs went up. And another area that hit us fairly hard was debt service. As we were locking in rates for the roof project, when we planned the project, the rates were in the 1.8 zone. And now the rates, when we locked in, we're pushing around 5. So the cost of our debt service was significantly higher than originally planned. However, we needed new roofs in our buildings. As an example, that camera is now out because of a leak in the roof that kind of affected that camera. So we have to fix our roofs. All of this led to a shortfall of $5.8 million between the revenue and expenditures. So that's where we were when we started planning after the governor's cuts. And again, as I said, if you take out the $3.4 million cut, we probably could have handled the other piece of it by making significant cuts to buildings and grounds, to supplies, to equipment, and taking advantage of the natural retirement process. But with the $3.4 million cut, the $5.8 million just became too great to handle. So we started with non-personnel. We wanted to cut as much as we could out of the budget that didn't relate to people, because we know our people work with our kids. So the items cut in buildings and grounds, we cut $427,900 in buildings and grounds projects. That's where we said that there were certain projects where we replaced ceilings or lighting that needed to be done, but could we push it off a year if we had to? Special projects for the STEAM lab at the elementary schools, we took out of the budget. Anything that was not essential that we could push off for a year or 2 or 3, we pushed off. The thing that this is dangerous over time, because if you keep pushing these things off, 1 year you can get away with, 2 years you start to get into trouble. If you keep pushing these projects off 3 and 4 years, now you have to make a lot of repairs and you're behind and you can't keep up. So then you have to go to other sources like a capital reserve or a bond. So while we are cutting $427,900 from this account, it's not the kind of thing we'd want to do every year, because we would find ourselves not having the building structures and safety that we want. We cut $385,270 from the curriculum and instruction budget. That means that we canceled all of our professional development for next year. That included the Teachers College professional development. That doesn't mean we're not doing Teachers College. We are doing Teachers College Unit of Studies. It just means we're not using professional developers from there next year. Any professional development we get next summer or into the fall is all grant funded, and that grant runs out in the end of September. But there will be no professional development, no summer curriculum writing projects, all the stuff that we could think of. There's literally nothing left in the curriculum instruction account, again, because we didn't want to, but we felt that we had to go there first before we went to any staffing situation. Technology, we reviewed the budget with Will Seuss, and similar to buildings and grounds, we cut $243,604 from that fund. Just looking at the number of students we have, how many Chromebooks we needed, how many boards we had to have replaced, we reduced it to the bare minimum so that we could operate the school and give kids what they have been accustomed to, but without having any room or play for anything else. We looked at athletics with Dr. Cox, and we went over every single equipment and or supply budget, and we kind of just chipped away at the supply budget for each basic team. All teams will run, all teams will have the equipment they need, but if we did this several years in a row, we would not have enough. But we figured we could cut $83,550. That also included some new jerseys that we were planning to give to some of our sports teams. We just couldn't afford to do that in this climate. If we can, we will restore that if we get some aid back. We reviewed with Rhonda and the business office the employee benefits based on retirements, based on other factors. We were able to take away $200,000 from that code. We had planned for some security enhancements, and I want to make sure this is very clear. We are not cutting any security. We have the exact same security set up next year on this budget that we do this year. What we wanted to do was make it better. Add some security, add some security measures, especially at the middle school where they don't have a double door kind of trap situation. Enhance our cameras, enhance our monitoring station so we could be more proactive, and some rovers. So we're not cutting anything from the security budget. I want to make that clear. We're just cutting the enhancements that we had planned for $142,401. We looked at our transportation budget. Every year we have a budget that accounts for special education and health busing in addition to the regular busing. A couple years ago, we were using more money, but as our enrollment declined and we had less students who have special needs on busing, we were able to cut that $300,000. That sounds like a lot, but that could be like 7 or 8 students depending on their needs. But right now we don't feel that we'll have those students. If we did get those students, we would have to go somewhere else to get that money out of that budget line. Debt service, Rhonda started negotiating with our debt service company for the upcoming roof project. And she's going to describe this in her presentation, but we were able to save $200,000 from the $1.1 million that we were spending on debt service. Okay, and then we get to this line, which is an important factor. So early on when this process started, we were talking about retirement incentives. We looked into it, and I was a little nervous about it for a couple of reasons. I was nervous about it because whenever you add an incentive, you get more retirements in the year that you give the incentive. But then the following year, you get less retirements. And one of the things that the district has been doing is using the natural progression of retirements to help us get under the cap every year. So if you fix it for this year with a retirement incentive, you might set yourself up negatively for next year. However, Rhonda spoke to legal counsel, and we looked at a reserve fund that we have, which is called the Unemployment Reserve Fund. We have $1.2 million in the Unemployment Reserve Fund, and we were using about $50,000 a year, maybe even less, from that fund. So it was growing in interest more than it was spending out. The other factor is I would much rather take money from the reserve fund and use it to keep us from laying off teachers than lay off teachers and pay out of the reserve fund for unemployment. Does that make sense? So we spoke with the Board of Education, and they gave us permission to move $600,000 out of the unemployment reserve and put it towards the budget to help offset costs, which was huge because we wanted to, again, spend that money to keep teachers, not spend that money to pay teachers who were now unemployed. Additionally, it helped us feel comfortable that next year, if we don't get the same retirements that we need to get under the cap, there still is an additional $600,000 plus in that fund that we could use to offset if we don't have the funding next year. Because I don't know if the governor's plan is a 2-year plan where they take 3.4 from us this year and 3.4 from us next year. So once we knew that we had this reserve fund, we felt comfortable offering a retirement incentive. The purpose of the retirement incentive was to help the district by allowing some teachers who might not be able to retire this year to do so, but also then to keep positions for teachers who are here so that we can maintain our programs for our kids and also keep as staff members on staff. And while that retirement incentive helped a lot, it did not get us all the way to where we need to go. So just as an example, these funds looks like a lot of money, and it felt really good when we looked at it and we said, wow, we just saved $2.582 million. And that's a big amount just from stuff and from a reserve fund. But then when we subtracted it from the 5.8, it was disheartening because we still have 3.2 to go. So we tried to close the gap with staff reductions. We had retiring teachers from the incentive, 12 secondary teachers, of which 10 lined up with teachers that we did not want to excess. So we are not replacing those 10 slots. That way we didn't have to excess 10 teachers in different departments at the secondary level. We had 5 elementary teachers retiring at the elementary level, 4 teachers not replaced. And again, by doing that, we were able to keep more teachers in the district. So if you do 1 for 1, you don't replace, then you can keep, you end up saving more teachers by not replacing. The retirement incentive saved us $2.174987 million, which again was a lot of money. The normal progression, if we had not had the incentive, we probably would have saved about $1 million or about 800,000, 900,000. And in this year, we doubled that with the incentive. So I think it absolutely did exactly what we intended it to do, but it still held us short 1.047726. So then we met with principals again, and we looked at where are the areas that we could cut that would not close programs, that would keep kids in all the programs they currently have. And that's where we got this actual staff excess. So right now we're at 2 elementary teachers, 3 secondary positions, 1 district-wide social worker position, 1 administrator. Those are actual people. And what bothers me about that is they're human beings who have given their efforts to the district, and we really don't want to lose those people. And if we get restoration, those will be the first areas that we would look to restoring. The green ones, part-time custodian, we had a person leave, so we just didn't replace. And with the 6 secondary program aides, while it is taking out of the program of the co-teaching, and I'll explain that in a little bit, we anticipate that that'll be lost by attrition, so it won't affect any individual people because we always are looking for 9 or 10 aides in the district in the summer, sometimes more. And so we anticipate that there will be no person let go. They will just be redistributed to other areas where we need aides. Currently in our co-teaching program in grades 6 through 12, I believe, we have 2 teachers and an aide in the room. And in our current planned budget, we will just have 2 teachers in the room with the students. But what does it mean exactly? Because there are some positions that are not being replaced through retirement. There are some that are being accessed. What does it mean exactly in each area? So we're going to look at the positions removed and the current impact. So at the elementary level, we're removing 3 elementary classroom teachers. Currently, our grade kindergarten students have a small grade. It's about 127 students. It's the smallest grade we have, and the current class size is 14, 15, or 16 in our kindergarten. When those students move to first grade, the impact of cutting these spots will be that the class sizes will be 23 and 24. We don't want those class sizes, but that's where it would be at this moment in time. If we get restoration, this would be one of the first areas I would recommend addressing. We have 2 classroom teachers at the 6th grade level. This is an interesting one because they're losing 209 students in 6th grade into 7th grade, but we're only getting 165 students from the elementary schools into 6th grade. So the odd thing about this is that even though we're cutting 2 from the 6th grade program, the average class size is currently today 26 in a class. Next year, the average class size in 6th grade will be 20 in a class. So the impact there is not a negative impact. I think it's something we would probably have to discuss, even if there were not cuts, where those teachers would go and how we would utilize them. We're removing 2 secondary English teachers from the high school. And again, the enrollment, as Rhonda will show you in her enrollment report, has been down. We're losing about 30 students a year at the high school. This year, we're going to be losing 230 some seniors, and we're getting in about 190 something 8th graders into 9th grade. So in this area, we had currently class sizes in the teens, and we're going to be going to class sizes in English between 23 and 27. We're going to be cutting 1.4 secondary social studies teachers, and the average class size in the high school, again, will go from the high teens to 21 to 25. We'll be cutting 2 secondary math teachers, and right now, math is different because there's a variety of different types of courses. So the typical average class size could range from 17 to 24. However, we have 3 outliers that could be 28, 29, or 30, and those are our AP singleton classes of AP and some of our honors classes. Currently, I'm told we do have an honors class running with 30, but I want to keep an eye on that as well because that's an area that I would not want to go. I'd like to stay in the range that you see up there. 1 health teacher. The average class size at the health classes will be 27 or 28. In PE, we had 2 retirements, so we would not be replacing those retirements. Currently at the high school, the average class size is 17 in PE. So the average class size in PE for next year would be 27, 28. And that's a pretty typical high school PE class size for the island. In K-12 art, we're going to have to rearrange scheduling, but I want to be very emphatic here that there's not a single art class that kids signed up for in the high school or the middle school that they can't have. We're running an art history class of about 8 students. We're running AP art classes of about 14 students. So we're really committed to making sure the art programs stay whole. And if there's a way to restore that, we'd have to be, I think, creative about integrating art and STEAM. And I've had some interactions with the principals, and we're brainstorming, what we would do with art if we were restored, and or how we're going to schedule art to make sure that everyone gets what they need. And similarly, 1 secondary music teacher. Due to lower enrollment, we are maintaining every single music class. There is no change in programming from what we can see, and if there is, we'll look into it further, but that's currently how we're affected. So in a strange way, the reason we're able to pull this off is the retirement incentive using the reserves, our lower enrollment happening over an 8-year period simultaneously with 18 retirements. So the impact of that is basically what you see on the screen, that we're able to run a high school that has pretty typical high school class sizes with the non-replacing of some of these positions. Is it what we would choose to do? No. If we have restoration, we'll look at a bunch of different things. And that's kind of where we go next. So what happens if we get aid restored? First off, again, it depends on the message of how the aid is being restored. If it's 3.4 plus 3%, then, and the message is we're going to use hold harmless moving forward, then we're going to look to really restore a lot. If it's, you're getting $800,000 and we're going to hit you for another $1 million for the next 6 years until you get to the $6.8 million that they think we owe them, then we're going to have to plan differently. But these are the recommendations that I would make: elementary class size, district social worker, reviewing staffing at the secondary levels to bring down certain class sizes like the math classes that I mentioned, and or a few other classes that we don't want to creep up into the 26, 27 zone. Review funds from the reserves and decide if we want to pull that back and hold it for a rainy day, or if we want to use it differently. Review the elementary administrative position, because I think that is a position that has really made a big difference at the Lincoln Avenue School and throughout the elementary program. And then, if possible, review some of the dreams we had, which was the reading AIS and math AIS, and the STEAM and world language, and the art and music programming, and not just holding tight to it, but expanding on it the way we always dreamed of. So none of this can be decided, though, until we get a firm answer and a firm number from New York State. So that's why we're not presenting two budgets right now. We're presenting the budget that we're being presented with from the state. If we get a number that's real from the state, we will hold a special meeting from the Board of Education, and we will present a new budget with an updated plan based on what we hear from the state. And just to kind of give, just to give a little, just for those who are concerned, like how much do we spend? Is Sayville been responsible? The answer is emphatically yes. This is a chart that shows the expenditures increases from 2013 to 2025. The average in Suffolk County was in the high 2s. The average in Nassau County was in the mid 2s. Sayville Schools over that 11-year period or 12-year period has had a 1.2 increase in tax levy and has been responsible year after year in our budgets. So we're going to continue to do that. And we also are going to continue to come to the community with a budget that is at the tax cap because we believe that the kids deserve that. So in this budget that I'm presenting to you, there are no programs cut for kids. Class sizes at the high school go from the teens to the 20s. And we're doing everything we possibly can to keep our district intact. So that's the story line. And now I'm going to hand it over to Rhonda, who's going to go over the official kind of presentation of the numbers. And I'm going to bring you the clicker.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ferris. And I want to thank both the Board of Education and the community and our staff for the support shown to us, as it has been a very challenging budget process, and we needed to carefully and methodically go over all of our expenditures so that we were presenting a very prudent budget that we would be able to manage for this upcoming fiscal year. So as you can see in the middle of the screen, the total budget for 2024-2025 is at $103,416,857. What does that mean? Well, the budget to budget increase over the 2023-24 year is a 1.34% increase, and that's a little over $1.3 million. We are keenly aware of the burden to our taxpayers, and we are have presented it on February 15th what the tax cap calculation was, and the maximum tax cap percentages at 3.996, and that is what is presented here up to the maximum. and the amount of that is $2,543,091. So first, I will present what the budgeted revenues are comprised of. So the breakout of the different components of our revenue budget are at the top. The largest share of that is funded by our property taxes and the levy. And the 3.996% tax cap yields a property tax levy of $66,188,080. The next largest revenue category is our state aid, and that is at the executive budget that was presented on January 16th. There is just a slight little increase to that number for other state aid. What's included in there, which is not on any state aid run, but each year we get approximately $50,000 that we're able to get reimbursed for our CPSC administrative costs for a preschool program. So that is a cost that has been included in addition to what is present in all of the executive runs. The next is our local sources. These are our interest earnings, our rentals, billings for health services and tuition to other districts. We do have one private school in the district, West Sayville Christian School, and we bill those districts who send their students to that school for the health costs that we pay for. Next is our pilots. Also, it's just the acronym payment in lieu of taxes. That is one property. That's the Bristol facility here, and that is what is represented by their tax contribution. Next is the fund balance. So these are what people call like your rainy day funds, but this is the commitment we're making towards the 2024-25 budget. That number typically hovers around $2.9 million. But as Dr. Ferris had shared, we are utilizing the excess in our unemployment reserve, and we're appropriating that additional $600,000. So that comes to the 3.5. The committed fund balance, I have a notation here that this is the last year of those monies. This was reimbursements or recovery from going from a self-insured health program to NYSHIP. And each year we have allocated a piece of that committed fund balance to assist with the balancing of the budget. This is the last year, so the $434,000 represents the remaining funds of that committed fund balance. And lastly are the other reserves. We have various reserves in the district, and those are to be used for very specific reasons. We have retirement reserves, the ERS and TRS systems, as well as our employee benefit accrued liability. And I will get into each of these categories in a little more detail in the slides that follow. And just as another notation, the required tax levy here is within the tax cap. So it's not a supermajority vote that is needed, but we are within the tax cap. This slide has been shown in, I believe, on February 15th, but it is, again, a summary of the 5 years of the maximum allowable tax levy percentage and then what the actual tax levy is. Now, there are two reasons why you would go to the maximum tax levy cap. For one, if it was decided in 23-24 that we were going to go below the cap, that would have made the gap in what we needed to balance our 24-25 budget even more so. So, and secondly, we are consistent in terms of preserving programs. So in each year, you can see that we have gone pretty much up to the maximum tax levy. Just in the 2020-2021 year, we went slightly below
what that maximum calculated tax levy is. And all of the presentations are on the district's website. So if you would like to go back and just see how that calculation was again for the 3.996, that is there. And I always like to just make a notation that our residents vote on the district's tax levy, not the tax rate. The tax rate is guided by the various assessed values that are within our district's borders. And the tax cap was filed timely, which it's due to the New York State Comptroller's Office by March 1. So that was done. So here is just another view of the revenue sources, but it's a comparative display here. And the largest disparity is again in the state aid. There was a 3.4 reduction in our foundation aid. That equates to a difference of 2.3 because there are various other aids that we get that are expense driven. So we spend money for transportation, we spend money on capital projects, and in turn we get building aid and transportation aid for many of those expenses. The pilot, that is just the increase that actually is coming, that property is at the end of its 10-year pilot, but there's a process with the town for that to actually go on our rolls. So they're pretty much at what their tax levy should be at this point, the Bristol, that is. Appropriated reserves, you can see each of the other revenue sources are much larger than in the prior year. Coming to that, again, that budget to budget increase of 1.3 million. So I just want to point out again, this is the governor's executive budget. We are hopeful that there will be a restoration of foundation aid within New York State's adopted legislative budget. Again, as Dr. Ferris had shared, they have meetings the week following April 1. So we hope that this information will be both positive and will come to us sooner than later. So I thought it was beneficial to just break down. This is certainly from the New York State Education's website, but this is the variance from budget year to budget year of what the state aid is. I do want to highlight, besides, of course, the CPSC administrative, that isn't part of this chart because it's not on the state runs. Universal pre-K, the amount for 23-24 was also at the same $745,200 amount. And that is $5,400 per UPK student at a maximum of 138 students. Unfortunately, we have to work within the confines of our own buildings, and we have 7 UPK classes that are being run. They will continue to run in 2024-25, but we are only able to tap into the number of students by that 5,400. So that is why the universal pre-K for 23-24 is at 680,402, and not the 745,200. I apologize that this is a little small or hard to read. Again, these are all on the website, but this is just a further delineation of what the other income, total other income is. And you can see the largest increase for that this year is within our interest earnings. So the interest rates have gone up. Also, what we had done this year was we had introduced NICLAS. They had done a presentation at a prior board meeting in the year, and we are hoping to earn more money on our deposits and reserves. So we felt comfortable in increasing that revenue source in terms of our budget. But it's the various rentals, all of those that I had mentioned. Down below, on the bottom left-hand side, you see the appropriation of all of our other reserves. So the appropriated fund balance is at the 3.5. We will utilize the excess of the unemployment reserve. There's the committed fund balance, as I spoke about. And then below that is all of the other reserves, and that is what we are taking from those reserves to help balance and fund the 2024-25 budget, and then the property taxes below. To the right, it's just an average home. We've showed the impact to what the average home would be. We're saying from the tax levy putting forth, it would be roughly a little under $400 for the year, $33 a month. And that's just the calculation of how you come to the tax rate schedule. So each month, especially beginning in February, I like to use February as the benchmark because after the passage of the first 6 months of your fiscal year, it's a little easier to work with what the forecast of our revenues and expenditures will be. There are expenditures that are cyclical. For instance, we pay for all of our insurances in the beginning of our fiscal year, unlike perhaps gas and utilities, which are expended throughout the 12 months. This was presented again on February 15th. We provide this to the board. It's our fund balance projection and where we will end up with our various reserves. So what has changed from February 15th to now is we have tapped into it's 5 places down, the reserve for employee benefits. That is now not at the 7.8, but rather at 5.3. 5.8, excuse me. I can't even read it. But that is where we're drawing from the retirement incentives for that which was put out to our teachers unit and our SASA group. So that is a reduction there. We're tapping into those reserves. And what has happened is the unassigned fund balance is up. Since we were confronted with the drop in our foundation aid, that also caused us to pause and take more of a local control in terms of our current year's expenditures. So there was a message that we were stopping non-essential spending come March 1. So we've been trying to take more of a management role, a stronger management of those funds. So this is where you can see it's kind of dipped down, it goes up, but we introduce new reserves. We are earning interest on our reserves, but we do tap into those each year, as you can see on the chart here presented. So this I thought was helpful. It is, as Dr. Ferris had shared, I did confirm with legal counsel, but each reserve, you can either establish it in a certain way, use it for a certain way, and there are different compliance rules on each of the reserves. So we definitely analyzed all of our reserves in going through this challenging budget process, and we clearly have more money than is needed in the unemployment reserve. So in order to do that, prior to June 30th, yes.
I believe the reason for that is the COVID years, right?
Absolutely.
Because we're expecting to pay out and we didn't have to.
Yes. So, and thank you. I did want to bring that point out. So during COVID, the unemployment filings were great, both true and fraudulent. And those were paid out in those years. And then once the Department of Labor got a handle on all of those claims, they were making reimbursements to districts for those that were not real payments or that we were overpaying. So that money came back to the district. But because we're self-insured for unemployment, it can only be deposited in the reserve for unemployment. So that money came back to the district, was placed in this reserve. And as Dr. Ferris shared also, our costs annually outside of an unusual COVID type of a year is about $50,000. So in the budget, you will see unemployment is budgeted at $50,000. We are using our reserve for $50,000. So we are tapping into this reserve for that excess because this is the only way we are able to get it out of this reserve. So there will be a resolution that will be presented to the board for approval. and then it's for 600,000. And there is still a little more of an excess, but again, we're trying to manage this in the best way possible because we don't have the information on where the governor is going with the foundation aid formula. Is it going to be totally reversed, or as they often spoke about, recrafting what that formula really should be, and where does that take Sayville in the years that follow? So this is just another way of looking at the revenue. Obviously, the property taxes again and the state aid are our largest revenue sources. If you look back to 23-24, our state aid was a few points higher and our property taxes were a few points lower. But that's just the story that we have now. So then it's not a balanced budget unless you also find what the expenditure side is. So I'm going to share those with you now. So here is a comparative analysis. This is how it's been portrayed here in Sayville in the past. It's salaries and benefits, which are our largest expenditure pieces. Those are at the top, and we've spoken about those here this evening with regard to the staffing and our needs. Debt service is both our short-term and long-term principal and interest costs to the district. We have our contractual outside of BOCES and transportation. Our BOCES expenditures, this is an estimate of what they're saying those costs, shared services are moving forward. We do receive aid on our BOCES expenditures as well as our transportation. Textbooks, transfers to our capital fund and special aid fund. Those are for monies that are only more appropriately expended from those two funds. For the capital fund, it's our capital projects. For special aid fund, it's our expenditures related to our federal, state, and local grants. And then equipment, you can see we really, when we had gone over and looked closely at the budget, the things we took out were things like equipment. To me, the nervous part of that is once you have an adopted budget, your equipment are all your .2 codes. You cannot move into equipment codes. So whatever the adopted budget stands at for equipment is what you have. You can move money out of those to other codes, supplies and things, but you can't move into equipment. So we've really just took that number and what are our real equipment needs moving forward.
I have one question.
Yes.
Is the employee benefits and salaries, does that encompass the whole district, or
It does.
do you have a breakdown between teachers, administrators, and we've had that
I
previously?
Do not in this slide, but we certainly can. That is actually more guided by like the 3-part budget that is going to be shown in because you have the administrative, the program, and the capital. So like our buildings and grounds, staff and benefits are in the capital piece, and our program, our teachers, instructional, that's part of that budget.
Okay.
That'll be on April 4th.
Correct.
Okay.
So we spoke a lot about enrollment, declining enrollment. Each year, the district does a long range plan study, and we get that information. And this was the year to kind of, we looked very closely at that. So on the top left, this is our enrollment and what that shows. The enrollment figures are directly from the property tax report card that is filed with New York State annually. And then our FTE equivalents for our teachers. This is just teaching staff that came from prior budget staffing that was populated in those budget presentations, and just confirmed with human resources. We went over those numbers.
Just wanted to point out that as the enrollment's decreasing, the staffing, there are certain reasons that are very legitimate as to why the staffing was either staying the same and or growing. And one of the things is that students today, have a lot more issues and needs than students did 10 years ago. So even though our enrollment has gone down, we did add a pre-K program, so that's 7 teachers. We did add social workers to every elementary school building, so that's more staffing. So someone might argue, oh, why is your enrollment going down, but your staffing is going up? It might not necessarily should be an up, but there are reasons why staffing went up, because there were needs for children that were beyond what we needed for kids 10 years ago. Also, STEAM and engineering programs, reading recovery, math recovery, kids' needs have grown. So we need to accommodate for that. So while the enrollment's going down, I would like to make an argument that staffing doesn't have to also go down, but it can stay flat and or just go up a little bit because of some of those areas that I just mentioned.
And then this is just a sliding graph on the student-teacher ratio in the past 10 years.
And that one includes the proposed situation.
24, 25, yes.
So you can see the ratio of students to teachers is actually smaller now than it was 10 years ago for all the reasons I just explained.
So another large expenditure here is our debt service. And you can see how it has increased from 23 to 24 to 24, 25. So in May of 2022, our residents approved a bond authorization for all of the roof work within the district. And it was a needed project. And what we do with bonding is we first go out, because you can't do all of the roofs at once. So we go out with a bond anticipation note. And in the first year of that, you just pay interest. So now we're in year 2. So we're at a crossroads. Do we go with a permanent financing of a serial bond for the entire project, or do we renew another ban with a smaller principal payment and interest until the project is fully completed, at which point we're able to then go out with permanent financing? So Dr. Ferris had made reference before to my analysis of this, and I worked with our financial advisors, and our interest rate, whether it be a $15 million serial bond or a $15 million bond anticipation note, is the same. The difference in the $200,000 in savings came about with a lower principal payment. So we tried to save in every which way we could. And the positive thing is we do have very competitive interest rates, because our district has a bond rating from Moody's of AA1, which is very good. So when we put together budgets, there are so many things that you have to consider. You have to consider fiscal stress scores, what your fund balance and reserve plans look like for moving forward. And there's a very systematic way that you want to apply those so that you don't have these very static years in between. So it's just, and it also includes our energy performance contracts. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a couple of slides. So transportation is a large cost. Here, we are busing our students based upon our mileage limits. We had gone out in 2021 for an RFP, a 5-year RFP. Suffolk Transportation had won the contract. We're very pleased with them. The 24-25 year will be year 5 of 5. So for 25-26, about a year from now, we will have to go out for a new RFP. The thing that makes me nervous about that is that the governor has also mandated districts to transition to electric buses. So although we don't personally have a fleet that we now need to convert to electric buses, our vendor and contracts need to abide by that as well. So I'm just a little nervous what those RFPs are going to be looking like as we move forward. But the good thing is we have had a 3.3% increase each year for our contract with Suffolk Transportation. They do largely 99% of our transporting, but that gives us predictability in cost as well as continuity of service. So, and that is, actually a decrease because we did look carefully at what our needs were in terms of not our regular transportation, because we haven't changed anything with that, but some of the other transporting that we do with our special education students and parochial schools and things like that. So what we're projecting what the needs are for there and reduce that. So the other large expenditure is for funding capital projects. The first transfer to capital fund, we have embarked on like a 3-year renovation of our bathrooms. We did this for our elementary schools. Lincoln Avenue was completed in the 22-23 year. When I arrived here in Sayville, we were our director of facilities and we were monitoring all of the bathroom work that was taking place this past summer. That was in Sunrise Drive. For 24-25, what we have is remaining 4 bathrooms in Sunrise Drive, as well as 8 in Cherry Avenue. So when these projects are decided, it certainly is used by a priority list. We try to spread the wealth and look where we need to plan for these projects that we're able to do within the operating budget and transfers to the capital fund. The transfer to special aid fund is for our share of the special education summer school program that is run. So the general fund, our operating fund, has to commit to 20% and we get reimbursed for 80%.
Can you also just point out how, if we don't use the capital spending, it'll impact our tax cap, right? That's
Yes.
an important point.
So there is a misnomer that 2% is a 2% tax cap, but it is a very involved calculation, and components of that are our capital projects, our debt service payments. What a plus to that, that would lower that would be any of our building aid that we get. There also is a small BOCES capital project aid piece that is part of that calculation too. So with our debt service and our capital projects, that does drive that number up.
So hypothetically, if we were to make the capital line 0, that would have an adverse effect on the tax cap for the district in the following year.
Yes.
And that's why, because somebody would look at that and say, well, why don't you just save the $1 million there? But that'll really hurt the district the next year.
It will. And the other thing is it's more advantageous to be able to address some of these maybe smaller types of projects, although there was nothing small about the bathroom renovations that were done, instead of taking on long-term debt that has an interest component to it. So this is just a before and after at Sunrise Drive. They were great projects that took place. I know it's bathrooms, but it's certainly improving our infrastructure. This is the just a graph, pie chart of our expenditures. The employee benefits and all of our salaries for the district are about 74% of our budget, and then the other categories there.
What the percentage is for our special ed aid for the state and just federal? What's the percentage they give us back? We're required to provide special ed services, which I'm very much. What is the percentage we get back? I see special aid fund 1.5, 0.15. I'm sorry.
Right. So that is just the transfer for our summer. It's stacked forms. So
Okay.
it's our summer special education summer program that we run. So we looked at what the costs were each summer, and that is routinely 200.
All
We
right.
looked at that and we lowered that by 40,000.
What is the normal percentage we get back for in aid for our special ed students? Percentage per student per need.
Right. So there's excess cost aid. That's a very hard thing to
you also get a different
share.
percentage or rate back depending on the student and the needs. So very extreme needs students get
Yeah.
more money back.
Yes, those
than
are the
others, right?
stackable
So it's hard to
ones
say an
that-
average.
I know
right?
that, but you see, there is an average. There is an average. I know we get more back for more handicapped students. I've done it for, but I want to know what the average is.
Yeah, I can get that information
Yes,
for you.
please.
Okay. So these are projects that are funded outside of our general fund budget. And as I had spoke about, our bonded projects. We're in the second phase of our roof replacement and HVAC work that will be done at our high school. Also, we are embarking on a third energy performance contract for solar panels, and we're trying to tie into that some very needed boiler work, particularly at our middle school. And I'll talk to you more about that. So this year, this coming summer, we are going to be replacing the roofs at Lincoln Avenue and Sunrise Drive, as well as this building, the administration building. And they did great work. That there is a picture of the Cherry Avenue roof replacement. And then also what we're doing this summer, it may have to be at night, or we're trying to structure those because we're still waiting. There are long delays in facilities planning at the state for approval on these projects. But we are doing 2 cafeterias at the high school as well as the auditorium. And that's all part of the bond. And then the third energy performance contract that we have is the shaded areas on each of the roofs of the buildings. Now that we are finishing roof projects, it makes a lot of sense to then put on the solar panels to those. It's also a learning opportunity for our students. But there will be more of a presentation on April 16th when our vendors, Energy Source Group and Energia come to address the board.
Can you just explain the concept of the energy performance bond, how that works?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the purpose of going to an energy performance contract is we have an opportunity to tap into the Investment Recovery Act now. So we are in line for that. The timing is just perfect. So we will get money back for that. We also have energy savings that will hopefully lower our budget in terms of our energy costs.
I believe they guaranteed us $474,000 a year in savings in electric bills as a result of having the solar panels on the roof.
Yes.
And that was the minimum guarantee.
Yes. And then there's also the building aid piece when you go to a capital project. So that is, the work is going to be beginning, we hope, December 2024, and will culminate like almost a year later. And then that's when the costs of this project, because there are some costs for it, will kick in later. So, and this is just a picture that when we certainly have the Board of Education at the top helping and guiding us here, but when you put a sound fiscal budget together, you have the necessary and great staff, as well as the maintenance of our facilities so we can instruct and provide for our students, and the community support. The end result is an amazing instructional program that addresses the needs and helps our students become great citizens and have all of the resources that they need. So.
I want to clarify when PL 94-142 came in and the special ed programs, we had a breakdown of percentages of what they paid. I want to see I have that. So I want to see what the difference is if we're getting back the same that they're not paying for their services. So you can go to the state and say you're not paying for services that we're required.
Okay. So for our next meetings, April 4th, as I had mentioned, we're going to present the 3-part budget. what a contingent budget looks like, and additional voting information. This year, we have the introduction of open voting also. So, and then if anyone needs to register, we'll try to provide that information at the next board meeting. As Dr. Ferris shared, as soon as we know information with regard to what the state budget yields for Sayville, and when it gets adopted, we will then fast move to what that budget will look like. And then April 16th, the Board of Education is approving the BOCES budget vote, as well as adopting the 2024-25 proposed budget. And following that, in April and May, we'll be doing our road shows and getting out to PTAs and other groups to explain the budget and give more of an explanation and be a presence to answer and address any questions. And then it all culminates on May 21st, that's a Tuesday, for the annual board election and budget vote.
And I just wanted to add, as I had said earlier before we open questions to the board, if we get any news from the government about state aid, which we expect to happen, I mean, they've announced that they're having these meetings, right? So they're negotiating hopefully next week. If they come up with a number, we will hold a special board meeting between that time and April 16th to present a new version of this budget, but it'll be fairly similar, but with aid in place, what we would do with it, and then adopt on the 16th. I just want to thank everybody who's come in attendance, both families and teachers and staff. Clearly, this is important to you. I just want you to know it's important to us too. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we provide the best education we can for our kids with the funding that we have. We're committed, and we're not going to stop bothering the state nor working on this until we get it to where it needs to be. So questions from the board.
I just wanted,
sorry.
so the proposition number 1 is going to be the school budget vote. We have an election of 3 Board of Education trustees. The voting is at the same location, the old junior high, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Tuesday, May 21st. And just thank you, as you had so nicely said.
Also, just before questions, that's an important vote. I mean, we got this money and this hit without a vote. That budget is an important budget because if it passes, we can maintain what we've just presented. If it doesn't, Rhonda will next week present the contingency budget, which would not be something we want to entertain at all.
Rhonda, I just want to say thank you. I'm sure it's been a challenging, 2 months or more, trying to get this all together. I know it's a lot of work, and I appreciate you and all the staff, actually, all the administrators, putting this together. And we have a difficult situation. And right now, I mean, this is the best that we can do, in the situation that we're in. And hopefully the state comes through and, gives us our funding back so we can correct the situation. Now, any questions? No? Okay.
We're going to entertain questions from the public at the end, but so you'll all get a chance. Don't worry.
Okay, so is that, we have,
That's the superintendent.
okay. And then we have, let's see, for Board of Ed discussion, we have the claims order report. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, it's fine. And then we'd go on to public comments. So before we start with public comment, can I have a show of hands of how many people would like to speak? Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to read this statement. The Board of Education appreciates feedback from the community, and we recognize freedom of speech as one of our fundamental freedoms. These freedoms are not without restrictions. We follow regulations specified by law, by board policy, and we encourage our community members to offer public comment. According to the Sayville Board Policy 1230, we request the following. Participants in public session must demonstrate civility as they address the board and community. 30 minutes has been set aside for comments by the public. The board reserves the right to limit or extend public participation if it deems necessary. Comments and questions from the public are limited to 3 minutes per person and should be related to school matters. Speakers are requested to identify themselves or the group they represent and direct their comments to the board. The board will not permit discussions involving individual students, district personnel, or community members. The full policy is available on the district website, and we appreciate your support to have a productive meeting. Thank you. Okay, so who would like to speak first? There you go. Yeah, if you can come up front here.
Hello. My name's Danny Spees. 3 of my daughters attended this school. They all went on to college. One's an attorney in Washington, D.C. And I have 2 grandchildren. One's in school now, and one will be in Sayville schools. And I have a question about the administration. How many assistant principals do you have in the school district?
If you ask all your questions, I'll write them down and then we'll answer them.
And what about the assistant superintendent? What does he do to earn his money every week? Does anybody have a record of what they actually do? And why cut the teachers out? Why not cut out of the administration? The children need the teachers. Teachers are what educate the kids. I say, my own opinion, I think you should look at cutting administration. That's all I got to
Thank
say.
you. Next.
So my name is Michelle Wilbert. I'm a parent in the district, and I'm also one of the per diem subs. And my question is, I've been asking the board this and Dr. Farris now for about, she's nodding, 8 months. You're making all sorts of cuts. What about the additional 15 permanent subs for a total of 25 permanent subs in the district? What about losing them? $370,000 it costs approximately to pay them, whether they work or they sit there. And just so everybody is aware, those permanent subs make exactly the same as if 5 teachers covered. They make $165. Teachers make $35 for covering the class. So why aren't they being cut? Why are they being kept there? And meanwhile, you're getting rid of aides for special ed. That's my question. No one has answered this question yet. So please, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi,
ahead.
everybody. So I'm in a back brace. So I injured myself shortly after the last meeting I attended, and I made a great effort to come here for staff and the community and the board. And I would appreciate it, since I don't think anyone else wants to speak. I'm going to go over 3 minutes. The soccer parents were given that privilege. And I need to do that at this meeting. I won't stop talking until I'm finished. I go a little slower because it's hard to breathe with this brace. It goes all over my back. Nobody will remove me or try to move me with my back, okay? So let me begin by saying I will mostly speak for 3 minutes. And I please appreciate the support of the people behind me if they interrupt me or try to stop me. I know just about all of you personally, and I've been coming to meetings for over 2 decades. I know our budget process very well. This one was a disgrace. Our budget calendar was thrown in the garbage. This is not transparent. It's a slap in the face to everyone, community and staff. This is a so-called first legitimate budget meeting we had when they should have begun in December, January, the latest. A potential state cut is no exception. Revenue is not even discussed until the end of those meetings. It's also amusing, if it weren't so sad, we don't have a full breakdown of the administrative budget. Whatever you do at the next meeting is irrelevant. The three-part component budget discussion should have come first, prior to this proposed budget. I wonder if Dr. Ferris, if you had read the policy manual, which is your guide to run this district, or if any board member has any idea what's in it, check out the budget section and maybe the bylaws too. No one follows New York State open meetings law. It's as if we went backwards as a district. Apart from meeting notices and lack thereof, you held an executive session to write a letter to the governor to restore foundation aid. An executive session. I could list all the non-permitted discussions held during those closed-door meetings, but I'd be speaking for 30 minutes at least. You need to discuss topics, almost all, of public interest except personnel matters, lawsuits, and a couple of other minor topics during public meetings in front of your public. It's their legal right to know. Learn the law. I gave it to you several times. Please, it's embarrassing. There's no real discussion at this table how you come to your decisions. Kelly, I have to address you separately here. The last meeting I was at, you stated my name several times when I didn't give it to you. This is for everybody. Please don't say public names unless they give it to you. You could be putting children and parents at risk if, say, they have an order of protection. In open meeting law, the public is simply known as the public. You can call them member 1, 2, 3, whatever suits you, but if they don't give you a name, please don't state it. Not following those laws leads to the lack of transparency. You're allowed to get away with it, and that's why we're here now. That said, I'd like to begin by stating my philosophy on state aid. This is a state-run school, and we have no partnership with New York State if they do not fund us at least 50% of the revenue pie. I think we all agree on that. At least 50% from the state we're due, if they're a partner. However, except for Rhonda, not one of you attended the refit legislative breakfast to learn about advocacy for fair state funding. That was held, I think, just a month ago, maybe. Dr. Ferris,
Teal,
no,
No,
I'm going to finish. Don't interrupt me, please. Dr. Ferris, do you think the governor read those letters? I know you all wrote them, and thank you. Would it not benefit the district if you attended that breakfast, or even a school board member whose job is to advocate for this community and the burden upon our local taxpayers? Refit is an organization which does just that. 70% of our staff live here. They pay the taxes as well, and we don't want them to lose their jobs. Our students rely on them, and they rely on their jobs. Job losses in our community harm our community, just as bad as being labeled racist or anti-Semitic. We saw state aid runs in January, though we should have expected a loss, as the prior year contained a benefit from full restoration of foundation aid, which was ending. To compare our current aid with one which contained a lawsuit settlement is kind of misleading. So, what did you do since December? Where was the rush for committees? You're saving some costs on transportation, but is that due to enrollment declines? Did you do a full study, or is the state giving us more? How much food is thrown away in the cafeteria? There's a lot we can look at. How much paper is printed? Did everybody get a blank agenda here when it could have been projected there? That's a few pennies, it helps. Onto the budget, which I looked over since yesterday. Why is there a third digit after the decimal point in the tax cap? That's new and insulting, as if you want to squeeze every penny, only to make cuts to the people who have contact with our children. Who is getting the raise, or are we adding an addition onto this building? And these staffing cuts, I do not see equal sharing in these cuts. How many administrators did you have in 2007? The year you used to write the governor, when we had 1,000 more students. You promised to put up 2 budgets.
Okay.
No, I'm almost
No,
finished.
no.
You promised to put up
Look,
two budgets, one with aid and one
look,
without.
I asked you
There
politely.
is still a very likely potential we will receive restoration of foundation aid, perhaps even with 3%
Okay, can you
more.
please sit down?
No. Though we will see, though you
Look,
present
I'm
us
trying
with
to,
one budget.
look, you have to respect everybody in the community, right?
Nobody- I am.
And you're not
you-
respecting
and I'm
us by
respecting the soccer
continuing to
players who
talk.
were given
okay?
unlimited time in at least 2 meetings. I will really, you cannot do that.
Yes, come
No,
on,
you need to read the
I've
New
given
York
you
State
6
Open
minutes
Meetings
to
law.
speak. That's more than
And I'm
anybody
not
else in
gonna
the
argue.
room.
Though you present us with one budget, the budget does not need to be adopted until the 18th. You could change your 16th meeting. You could change it. And I realize what I'm about to say is more complex, but I will make it simple. Okay? First of all, if you fill people's
I'm
minds with
asking you
fear,
to sit
there
down,
is no room
please.
for other thought, and that's what's happening.
Okay,
So
look,
here we are with one budget.
look, we're gonna
You're
stop the
asking the
meeting. If
community-
you're gonna continue to
This
talk.
is legit questions. If
No.
anybody else has.
You've had double the time. You've
You're
had
all the
double the
time.
time.
Sorry, that's too
You
bad.
need, no, it is not
Yes,
too
we
bad. There are rules that
You're
apply to
asking the
everybody, including
community
you.
for 2.5 million more of the pie share.
All right, Wayne, I'm going to ask you to
Say
have
1
security
million.
contact.
The difference between foundation aid and loss.
Hold the mic,
is
please.
3.5. Additionally,